that was a real kind of showstopper for me. I was like, wow, okay, you think I can do this? Almost, I didn't even think about that.
Probably my greatest strength as I went through my business career is knowing what I shouldn't be doing.
Talk to people and ask them, what are the 3 things that they would really depend on you for? What do they see as your core skills, your core attributes? Equally ask them what they wouldn't depend on you for.
Devina Paul, welcome.
Lovely to be here, Sean.
Now, you're currently the CFO of Zumo Money, but before we get into that, I'd like to know where it all started.
Gosh, that's a big question, right? So if I go back to university, I did a physics degree. I always wanted to be in the music industry, wanted to be a sound engineer. And I got some work experience at the BBC, and everybody there did physics degrees. So I said, right, that's what I'm going to do. And I got to university and realised maybe I'm not that good at physics. But I did the degree. I did okay. But actually, I decided to take a year out before I did a master's in medical physics. And I started working at an ad agency, which was the best ad agency at the time. I knew nothing about business. So my parents are not from the business world. My mum was a nurse from the age of 19 till she retired. And my dad worked for the GLC as an engineer. So I have no business knowledge, but I found I really loved business. Being an accountant, the maths side was easy. And I really loved the industry. Advertising, especially then, was fun. Lots of good times. So yeah, I kind of stuck at it. I did evening school, weekend school, so learned my craft in industry, and realised I wanted to work with founders to build their businesses, scale them, exit. I really love the exit process, that whole mergers and acquisitions process.
So being in accounts, are you naturally good with maths, or you enjoyed the process of the numbers?
I think I have an aptitude for maths. So it's almost like that was the easy bit. I don't necessarily, doing the accounting is not something that I would say I prefer the more strategic side of what I'm doing. The other stuff I can do with my eyes shut, that's really easy. But really it's using that information, using that data to understand how you can grow a business, how you can increase your margins, where you should be expanding into. Those are the things that I find more exciting. I mean, I can build financial models with my eyes shut, and I still do a lot of that. But really it's the strategic piece that I enjoy.
So getting into finance helped you then get into business, which then helped you?
Because I had core skills that actually a lot of business people who are very creative and brilliant may not necessarily like to do the finance side. That's not their natural skill set. It's not something that it's not the sexy side of business, but it's one of the most important sides of business. So what I bring is to entrepreneurs and founders is you have an idea, I can help you make that reality by putting in those strong foundations into your business that you will need to be able to scale and grow.
So a business person like me, I'm more of a let's get on with it and figure it out along the way, which I would say I definitely don't recommend to the masses with some of the pain points along the way. I've kind of done it a difficult way, but trying to explain strategy to a young Sean O'Neill who's more like I'm more a connector, less analytic, do understand numbers and margins in my own head, but maybe unable to follow the graph or the strategy you put in place. How have you met many along the way, or people like me? How would you deal with someone like me who just wants to get on with it and maybe feels like they haven't got time to put the foundations in place?
I mean, that's most entrepreneurs, right? And I see it particularly in financial services, which is the industry I work in now, a lot of fintech founders are very entrepreneurial and really just, they just want to go for their North Star. But you have annoying things like regulation and compliance that you kind of have to factor in when you're growing those types of businesses. So I don't think it's very uncommon. I guess the idea of someone like me is I bridge that gap and help you manage expectations so you don't get those frustrations, for example, when you have to deal with regulators. But equally, I can't be a blocker, so it's walking that fine line between the practicalities and the growth and the scalability and the exciting creativity. That's what I try and bridge the gap between.
Is there a criteria of people you choose to work with?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, we've touched on this a little bit, but values are so important, and they have always been important in my career. So when you meet someone who has, or a group of entrepreneurs who have the same values as you, all the businesses that I've built with my kind of business partner, they've all been values-driven organisations, because we understand that that's the X factor. And also to get your team galvanised towards a set of values, all pointing to the same North Star, is so powerful. And we understand that you can build success that way.
So if you go back to being an accountant and then working with companies, you come in as an employee to work your way through to find your now partner, or what was that journey like?
So I started off in the most junior finance position, accounts assistant. I knew nothing about accounting. I knew, I didn't know that a profit and loss. I heard the term P&L. I thought that was one word. I didn't realise it was P and L, and that stood for profit and loss. So I was starting at the basics. I was lucky that I had a boss who saw something in me. So when I went for a role within the team, he just said to me, "That's not the role you should be going for. I see you as Chief Financial Officer one day. I see you as this person who was our Chief Financial Officer." And that was a real kind of showstopper for me. I was like, wow, okay, you think I can do this? Almost, I didn't even think about that. So, and that just led me on the path. I took it seriously. Yeah, I'll qualify.
Did you ever come back to him at a later date and ask what he saw in you, or why he pushed you to that, or what you have
No, I didn't
done?
actually, but I have done that exercise with people who are close to me. It's something that, I don't know if you've done it, but I would highly recommend everybody does that. Talk to people and ask them, what are the 3 things that they would really depend on you for? What do they see as your core skills, your core attributes? Equally ask them what they wouldn't depend on you for. And none of those things are bad things. It goes back to understanding what your own strengths are and really focusing on them and supplementing the bits that you're weaker on with other people who are great on those things.
I do quite a bit of that as I've matured. I'm a believer in people, sometimes too much, and I love to see people advance. Your story, I know we spent quite a bit of time talking before the camera started rolling today, but I love to hear a success story. I love to hear values of people, and ultimately, probably my agenda is I want the people that succeeding to all be around me as well. So we can share the Christmas dinners and know that the bonuses have been paid, and we can understand that we're all going on holiday and buying our own houses because we've all added to the success together. So that's what really gets me up in the morning. And I found that to find those people, I spend a lot more time now asking those questions and trying to show them the way that your boss did about where they could be. Yeah. If I was to push them sort of down that line. Or the other side of things would be is that trying to guide them to not go down that route. I think we touched on this before. Sometimes probably my greatest strength as I went through my business career is knowing what I shouldn't be doing as a business owner, and especially when you're in infancy of business, is you have to do everything.
Yeah.
But you do everything for a short space of time until you find the person that's better than you that will take over those roles. So yeah, I really, really, I've realized that the strength maybe is to mentor, coach, bring people with you, and you know the values are the same with us, and you also do this.
Yeah.
You do
And
this quite a
it
bit.
is about understanding your own strengths, being really clear about that. But I think also it's about being really clear on your vision and your mission. That's how you really get people to follow you. Because I think I think that first bit of I see you as that, or I have this expectation, I have a high expectation that you can do this is very powerful for someone. But I think the thing that takes them on the journey is being able to sell your vision of the end goal, and getting people aligned. And you know, that's what we do a lot of work at Zumo, in all the other businesses that I've worked with, in getting all the team aligned with that kind of single North Star that we're all pointing towards.
So what's your end goal?
I mean, that changes because you're constantly achieving, right? so you know, a great example I would use was, you know, I had this person say this to me, and then a few years later, I realised I kind of formed the goal of I wanted to be the CFO of an independent ad agency that sold, you know, because I'd done some of the M&A stuff. And once I'd hit that, I was left a bit kind of, oh God, what's next? What that taught me is always have an idea of what comes next, because actually the energy that leaves you when you get there, you know, it just kind of drains from you.
It can be quite deflated. You could actually end up with, there's been times in my life where I had my goal, achieved my goal, and soon after it, I hit a sort of downward spiral in my energy and my thought process, and have questioned, you know, why, what's next, and probably through that process I've realized that the goal's ever changing. The journey is as enjoyable as the end result.
Yeah.
And as we live in a future, we're always looking to the value that we're going to have in the future. We see it now.
Yeah.
Is there a point where you have to realize these people that are trying to be on your path or learn from you, they don't get it, and
sometimes that happens, and I think the way you see that is being really clear on the outputs that you're expecting. Where do we want to be, you know, in quarter one, quarter two, or however you frame that kind of road mapping. And if you've had alignment on the things you want to achieve and you're not hitting those things with that person, there's no hard feelings, right? Because the journey is what it is. Not everybody's made for that journey. Their journey could be different. So you have to be very flexible. You can't take things personally because it's got nothing to do. People are just not right for certain journeys. Maybe they've been casted in the wrong role, or it could be a huge number of things. And as you know, some people are either made for an entrepreneurial life, or have the kind of have the mettle for it because it can be very hard, or they're happy in a great corporate environment that really suits them, and neither of those are better than the other. There's just different environments for different people which bring out the best in them, I think.
And as you've evolved, have you actually, when you look into those stressors and where you've got to now, do you think you could ever prepare for the journey you've gone on and the difficult times, and are you even able to explain that to people, how there's so many variations along the way?
I think you have to go through it. You have to go through those tough times to be able to, there's loads of people talking about resilience, but that's what it does. It builds that resilience. It gives you the methodologies to do things in the best way. If you, for example, have to go through a redundancy process, which, that happens, especially more recently. The markets have been quite volatile. We've seen, huge exits at some of the, or redundancies at some of the massive, the biggest tech companies. How do you handle that in the best way? And that's been a learning for me. You handle it. The best way to handle that is to communicate. Don't keep it as a black box that, these are people's lives. So you have to communicate with them every step of the way what is happening, give them clarity, and rather than it being, announced in the press, oh, this is happening, or it happening in several stages, because something like that is so big to a business. And I know our chairman at Zumo, the best bit of advice he gave to me is, it's traumatic for the people that you're having to let go, but don't forget about the people who are left behind, because they have experienced that trauma as well. And having been through, this at various organisations and seeing how it's done well, seeing how it's done badly, bringing all the best bits, because people are at the core of your business. If your team's happy, they stay. It's really difficult to find good talent. So you want to make sure that you are keeping hold of the best people in your team as well, by looking after them and not kind of saying, oh, well, you're here, you're still here, that's all that matters. Actually take them on the journey with you, and kind of how do you keep the vision going after such a big event? That's really important as well.
What's been your most difficult decision or period in your career, and how did you overcome that?
Gosh, that's I think where it's been difficult is probably more where I've gone through difficult personal circumstances. So making sure everything is still happening, whether that's grief or loss. Equally, I think going through grief probably toughens you up a little bit, or toughen up is probably the wrong word. It allows you to contextualize and understand that some things aren't necessarily the end of the world, but you still treat them sympathetically and sensitively. So those, I'd say, are where you're still keeping stuff going, but when you close the door at night, you're having to deal with grief and
just
emotion.
all connected.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think it's very difficult to separate the two things, especially if you bring a lot of yourself into work as well.
I don't think it should be separated. We're not robots.
Yeah.
We're human beings. we succeed because we enjoy each other's company.
Yeah.
We work together. We get each other. It's how the world works.
Yeah.
We're all connected through energy, or however we see it, and that's definitely one of the strengths within my group of business partners, that if you're personally feeling it, the business is going to feel it.
Yep.
And if the business is feeling it, you're personally going to feel it, and it has to be addressed together.
Yeah, it's really difficult to cover. You can for a certain amount of time, but I mean, I'm really lucky that my network, it's a strong friendship bond, as well as, doing business together. So we're able to have those conversations, nothing really is off limits.
Can you tell us more about Zumo?
Yes, sure. So I'm Chief Financial Officer. Zumo is a digital asset wallet. So it's in that crypto space, which is exciting for some people, makes other people nervous.
What doesn't?
True. We have really gone from a compliance first perspective, because we understand that's what gives people the sense of security, the sense of safety in an industry that may not necessarily be perceived like that from the outside. So that's been really important for us. Really great user experience, all of that kind of stuff, working with regulators, making sure we're doing things in the right way. And I started there in 2018. So the two founders, Nick Jones and Paul Roach, I've worked with them for a long time. Nick and I have been long-term collaborators. We've had businesses together. We co-founded an investment business called Galvanized Capital in 2013 or 2014. So I was his finance director for the first business that he sold in 2012. So we've worked together for a long time. So when he and Paul started Zumo, there's already a certain level of trust.
Yeah.
I'm a known quantity.
So important.
And I've done it. I've built businesses with other founders, got them to exit. I understand what good looks like. And we have a great relationship, the three of us. So they came to me and said, come and work with us. And I really enjoy when we go back to values and choosing who you work with, knowing that you are working with people who have the same values as you. You know that through the good times and the bad times, because they're not all good times when you're setting a business up. You know that you can work through those, and you're kind of all aligned in terms of where you want to get to. So that's always been important, and I think I can say honestly where I've only done it once, but where I've chased money and money alone, it's not worked because I haven't had that alignment of values, and it's just I've realised for me, it may not be the case for everybody, but for me that's crucially important.
When did you start understanding your values? Is it a nature, nurture?
Well, it's something I'd never thought about, but the first business I worked with Nick on, I Spy, we worked with a great guy called Mike Pegg, and he's all about building values-driven companies. He's about the strengths approach, and he's been a long-term mentor for me since 2009. And that's when I really started learning about how important values are, how important that alignment of values are within an organisation, how it just gives you the X factor to grow and be successful. I think I would find it difficult to be in an organisation that isn't values driven now, or where I can't be working with people who don't share my values.
Whether you admit it or not, or understand it or not, I think all of us are like that. Even the toughest, hardest people out there that will intuitively know that it's the values that keep a company together, or you'd probably end up not enjoying it very much with a very short-term business that won't go to the heights it should do if you cut your values. And before we spoke about values, the values in my company and the people I've found along the way are the exact same values as what I grew up on the farm. When the day of, you couldn't employ people, so you needed the local community and the local farmers to help people when it was time to gather the potatoes, feed the animals. You would just knock the neighbour's door and say, I need help for the afternoon. And it was reciprocated at the right time. And that's how we survived. Although there was very little money, as businesses when they start up, there's not a lot of money to just go and hire the best, and you go into a deficit the minute you open a business because of all the costs. And in the old days, the door was always open, there was always food on the table, and everybody was always fed or looked after, and to fight another day or to survive another day. And I guess my values was realised when as I get older and things didn't always go my way, that I fell back to understanding that that's the reason I'm able to succeed. And before we started this podcast today, that was exactly what I found was great that you touched on the same thing.
And I think you said it, didn't you? Who are the people that you need around you to survive another day or to fight another day? Those are the people that share your values, and those are the people you want on your team to build a great business, I think.
So crypto, for a lot of people, is still a scary, unknown place to go to.
I think that's fair. I think...
And when people want to get into crypto or want to understand more, how do you approach that with them?
So I think, and as a business, we really believe education is key. There has been a lot of bad press. There have been, big stories of where it's gone wrong. And I think this goes back to us as a business being very clear on why we are doing what we're doing. This is to bring financial inclusion to the world. And it, the thing that's often missed is it can be a force for good. It opens up financial systems to people that may not necessarily have access to them. We live in a country where actually that's relatively easy for a lot of people, but in some places that isn't the case. But it's how do you keep that safe and secure and give people the comfort to feel safe using it. And so education for us is the key. So we do a lot of work with consumers. We have a lot of resources on best practice. Equally, I would say there are a lot of things that are kind of levelled at this industry in terms of the dark web or, scams that are done with traditional finance as well.
That's everywhere.
Yeah. So sometimes it feels like it should be brought up, but I think it probably should be, it should be balanced, I think. But as an industry, we understand it's our responsibility to make this a safe environment for anybody to participate in. And I think also as a business, what we've done is the other big thing with digital assets, as they're known, is the energy consumption issue. And that's been, through our own journey on how do we meet net zero requirements, we've been able to build a product that will help other people address the carbon impact of their digital assets. So that's always been, and I think that goes back to, again, what are your values as a business? And based on our values, we've been able to create products that, we hope will leave the world in a better place than
Do people come to you with, I guess when people are investing, a lot of it I find is FOMO. If they don't jump in now, they might fear of missing out. Yeah. So if they don't jump in now, and when I hear that in the property world, and I've got money in the bank, it's not making me any money. By this time next year, it's devalued with inflation, and I need to do something now. When I hear that, I think, hold on a minute. As you just touched on, education of why they're doing it. Do you find there's a lot of that with people that are willing to nearly gamble with go on your trust or nearly go with an uneducated view because they just need to do something with it now before it's too late?
Again, I don't think it is specific to digital assets or crypto.
It's everything, yeah.
It's, you see it in angel investing, which, I've done a lot of. There is always this fear of missing out. And actually, where it works is where the businesses are aligned with your values and you can work with the founders, you understand the problem they're trying to fix. So education is the key, but I think, we have a responsibility, and I don't think that should be shirked because there are a lot of vulnerable people there. And that's the same for other industries like, gambling or investment. We do have it. If you work in those industries, you do have a duty of care, I think, especially to consumers. And that's why, the regulators are so hot on this, and why we took the view to work with them and make sure we're doing everything in the right way, in the safe way, and in the compliant way to make sure consumers are safe.
And again, that's the second, well, the most important part is the safety. I remember I watched a documentary a few years ago about the Canadian crypto wallet that had £500 million worth of assets, and it vanished. The guy vanished, didn't he? And they don't know if he was murdered or vanished.
Yeah. I mean, there were, especially in those early days, where there wasn't that kind of wrapper of regulation, where actually it was an industry that was growing so quickly that regulators just couldn't keep up with it. And so those things did happen.
So for people understanding where my digital money's going and how safe is it, is that something that if they can feel working with Zumo that can't happen to them?
Yeah, but I mean, yes, because the technology is safe and secure, and actually, a lot of the things that people don't think about the technology itself, that it is transparent, it's fully trackable, auditable. We have to audit all the transactions that go through our wallet. We have to do checks on everybody that wants to sign up on.
Is that not what he told all his investors? The guy
we have to physically do those checks. We're held to account. And again, I guess that was at a time when there were no.
I always say, if you're getting into whatever you're getting into, understand the rules of engagement. And sometimes it's really difficult to. And if you understand that you've done your best due diligence, and there's still a bit of a gamble, at least you're aware. Because there's been times in the past I've understood what I thought I understood, and I didn't understand the real rules of engagement, and it didn't work out for me. And I guess that's part of your education process to people, to spell it out as clear as possible for them.
But also give them the ability to think that they can participate. I think that's really important. But with that understanding, do not use money that you are going to lose. Understand what you're investing in, whether that's digital assets, whether that's in, startups, whether that's in stocks and shares. Those worlds are open to everybody. You don't have to be from a certain social class or from a certain part of the country to be able to participate in that. But do your research. Understand what you can and can't lose.
Understand it's their decision at the end of the day. They're not being convinced this is the thing for them. So, working with you and Zumo, they're safe, they're educated. You believe in the future of crypto?
I think of it as a asset class, yes, but also the technology, right?
And where do you think it's going in the future? If you had a crystal ball in 5 or 10 years?
I think.
By the way, nobody knows.
No, nobody knows. But I think that's really important. I don't think the use cases have landed yet, but I think the understanding that you have this technology which is so powerful, so open, so it's not an either or, banking or crypto. It's an alternative, right? The two can go hand in hand.
You can spread your risk.
Yeah.
Or your investment.
Exactly. And I think also the technology itself, one of the real world applications that it can be used for, when you look at things like government procurement and logistics, how can, if you've got this network which is completely trackable, things like government procurement, that becomes really powerful. So that, could it limit fraud in those environments, or things going to the wrong place, overspends, things like that. So those are the applications where I think it has the most power. And also that idea of democratizing finance in countries where it's harder to get a bank account, or you just don't have access to a financial system. That's where the power of it is.
I have quite an interesting property background, and maybe to try and relate to those people back home, I'll just touch on a few things. I had extreme FOMO in 2003, 4, 5. I was going to fear of missing out. Property was just on the rise and people were becoming millionaires overnight. There was freedom of finance and I jumped in. What I thought was educated. And I guess the purpose I'm going to get to here, I believe, is maybe the long game of anything we do. And made a huge amount of money, and it all went wrong. Lost it all and more. I'll not go into all that detail now, but the 2009, 10, 11 was horrific years for me, where everything that I couldn't afford to lose, thought it was still safe to a degree, lost it all. But I had the long-term approach, and hence why I've said, 5-10 years from now, because normally if you've got a long-term approach, you're able to get back out of the short term. Is a gamble for me, and I know we talked about this before. Ultimately, that dip, whether it's crypto, property, or other assets, that dip was the sweet spot. And although 9, 10, 11, 12 was a horrific time for me that I would never want to repeat again, although I learned some valuable lessons, because I had the long approach. The education that you talk about, I felt it in my heart then. I'd read about it. I had my mentors teaching me. I had people advising me. A lot of that was words. I hadn't felt it. And my message, and I know this will be a message to the people that you advise and help, is that no matter what happens, everything's temporary.
Yeah.
The markets are temporary. Property's an interesting one at the moment, because there was a scramble this past few years to buy property. Now there's a bit of uncertainty with interest rates, and it fluctuates all the time. So would you be aligned with me in thinking that whoever you're speaking to, they have to not risk money that they can afford to lose, but also not jump out if it just goes wrong overnight, or not have a panic and just run for the hills, or they'll have to hold their nerve? Or are you able to help people through that process?
So I'd say I look at things slightly differently. What I say to people, especially if I do workshops on, financial well-being or anything like that, is often you are putting your money into things that you can't get out quickly. So think about what you're doing that for. Is it to build your deposit for a mortgage? Is it for school fees for your children? Put the money in if you don't need it out tomorrow. And I suppose that plays into your long game idea. I try not to give people financial advice. I'm certainly not qualified to do it. But in terms of guidance, often you're putting, especially if they're riskier places that you're putting your money in, like angel investing. If you're angel investing, it's very unlikely that you'll be able to get your money out for 7 to 10 years, because that's the normal cycle from a startup to when they exit. And so that, from that point of view, you just have to sit tight and hold, and hopefully.
So you're giving them a fluid approach to their investing as well. If they really need it, they can get it.
Well, I wouldn't. If you really need it, I wouldn't put it. I'd say you wouldn't be putting it in an investment. You would
put it into something that
you can get it out if you need it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's that's an important thing to know. That another rule of the investment: if you really need it, don't put it away for 7 to 10 years, because the goal can change in life as well as business. A lot of things can get in the way. So you're extremely driven, successful, done a lot in your life.
That's true.
And I believe you're going to enter the world of politics. Hoping to. I suppose where I've got to with my experience, what I've done, how can I take what I've done to give back, deliver impact? And so, I'm starting at ground zero. So that's been an interesting journey. People are really receptive. I really like the idea of local power, local politics, and
the impact you can make, which you see with, you know, the Metro mayors and, you know, Mayor of Liverpool, Steve Rotherham, Andy Burnham. Often you're able to deliver a level of impact that you maybe can't at a parliamentary level. So how can I use my commercial expertise, my understanding of business, the economy, creating jobs, how can I bring all of that into the world of politics? Because you get some, but there's not loads of people with real life experience. So that's the journey that I'm on at the moment, starting at the beginning. So I'm very much at the beginning and just seeing what direction it takes me in.
Are you going to be able to assess the demands on you because I guess as people that are driven to succeed, we usually underestimate the amount of time, effort and strain. How are you going to balance that with business and being a mother?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really, really good question. Where I usually get to with things, and I'm sure you're the same because you probably do lots of different things as well and probably stretch yourself. But what I find is where you are working on the things that are your passion, you make the time, you find the time, it gives you the energy to drive you forward. And so you need to do that assessment of, you know, what are you doing at the moment, what's working and what's not working, what's being a drain on your energy and what is giving you energy. My son will always be a huge priority in my life, and you know, that will always be kind of my North Star. And to show him what I can do, what I can achieve, I think that will be the thing that will drive me forward. But also making sure that, you know, he's at the centre of everything that I do will be really important.
Yeah, I've spread myself in so many times with unknowingly what I was doing until I was in the middle of it. I think the advice that I would give anyone is that if you do spread yourself thin, it's not just you that suffers, it's whatever you have created or you're involved in and the people that are involved in with. What I've got better at, and I'm continuing to get better at, is that I'm ensuring that there's processes in place and people in place that if I am leaving or spending less time on something, I've got people there to look after that baby, that project, that business, to make sure that it's, I'm not unfairly starting something and then letting it suffer due to my drive, my selfishness, my willingness to do a new thing.
I think that's really important, you know, when you, not necessarily to do with politics or that's just the way it has to be. You have to have the people in place that are going to drive the business forward while you go off and do other things. And we see that often in an M&A process as well. You know, the founders will be, it's a big process to go through, and that takes away the founders away from a business. So they need to have the right people in place to keep the business going, to keep winning business, to keep generating revenue, to keep everything going while they're doing the work to sell the business. So I think, you know, that having that understanding, I think, is really important. And I think that's why you build great teams. That's why you make sure people are working within their A strengths and the things that they're best at, because that's how you achieve success.
You're finding a team. How do you figure out the driver for that person? Some people are driven by the values of a company. Some people are driven by what they get in their pay packet monthly. Some people are driven by having a skin in the game. And how do you then find the right person for that job?
I think that really always comes down to the values. And people may be money motivated, it may be about the values, it may be to have skin in the game, as you've said. But fundamentally, it will always come down to the values, because that's the team that will be with you to kind of survive the next day, fight the next day. And it will always come down to that. I think people underestimate how important hiring processes within an organisation to really take the time to find the right people who are really aligned with your mission and who will be able to do the things that you need them to do as well, and be really driven to help you succeed and to help the business succeed. I think that's really important. It's how I've always lived, worked my career. It's how can I help you succeed? What can I do to help you realise what your mission is, your goal is, what your roadmap is. That's always been how I've worked, and I think if you tend to work with people like that, you will achieve success that way.
So your roadmap of your business and getting people on board and working together is going to be the exact same for your aspirations politically, to bring those values, bring those people.
Absolutely. I think it is really important. There's a lot, I think, again, coming at this world with fresh eyes that you can bring from the commercial world into that world in terms of your ways of working, how you manage people, how you manage a team, and all of those kinds of things, how you focus on outputs. All of those kinds of things I think are equally important in both worlds.
There seems to be a period in a successful person's life where they start to feel like it's time to give back.
Yeah.
And it's becoming into my life, and I can sense that it's a huge part of your future. Has that been something of recent, and is that something that you feel that is necessary to give you your next goal or the North Star?
I think so. I think it's always been at the back of my mind. How can I give back? I know I can only give back using my expertise and my experience. So how do I do that? And that's the working that out has been the journey, and even moving to a whole new environment as well. Mm-hmm. We spoke briefly about a lot of people feel they need permission to enter new worlds, and I was really interested in reading your story and how it didn't feel like, given your background and growing up on a farm and coming to Liverpool and building your businesses, it felt like you didn't need that permission. You were very driven on this is where you want to end up.
I was just terrified. Everybody was hungry and had no money, yeah. And I grew up in a house with no central heating, so I was just terrified. I needed to get out. Yeah. So my driver when I was a child was probably a lot different than my driver now. But going back, all of those experiences are how I can sit here today with you and sit here with so many amazing people, and the joy is definitely in the process, yeah. not in the achievement. I think
there's joy in both, but always
not just the achievement.
Yeah, I think it's really important to be present through the journey, not just looking at things back on a retrospective and saying I've achieved that. Find the joy in the journey, find the satisfaction. It will drive you more. I think you spoke about where do you find energy and all of that kind of stuff.
When we talk about success, I'm working on a pie chart, for want of a better word, and I'm dividing it in to see what actually success looked like for me 2 decades ago, a decade ago, 5 years ago, and now. And I'm trying to divide it up, and I do find that it's all of the same things. It's just the percentage of where my energy goes is changing. And if I was to, of which I do quite a bit, is trying to mentor, guide, educate people on what success looks like. We are all built up of the same needs. It's just maybe the formula is slightly different. I'm looking forward to releasing that pie chart on how I've evolved, and that's where the giving back has come into it now, where you feel that it's like the human in you realizes that you can't maybe, not that people like us are someone that will continue to take, but I do feel when I was younger it was definitely less altruistic and more commercial, my journey. There was less of a emotional capability in my growth, and more of a more hard-lined, take the emotion out. This is the facts and figures. You wake up this, you do this, you create your results. I don't need to know your problems. Leave your problems at home. Where now I'm like, how are you today? Tell me, I've a great, I've loads of great conversations in the office where I try and get out what bothering people, and then I say, well, if you tell me your biggest problem this week, I'll tell you mine, or tell me your big, and let's see, can we beat each other and see who's got the worst? And you find out time and time again that it's relief, because I say how I've messed up, or this isn't going right this week, or multiple things have gone on in my week, but because I'm maybe smiling, or because it's assumed that I've got success and I've got a nice car or a nice house, or I can go on nice holidays, it's unknown to those people coming through. So I try and really now show that that's okay.
Yeah.
This all went wrong. That's went wrong. I lost on this. I got lied to on this. It just didn't work out for me. But that's part of the part of the pie chart. Yeah. Part of the journey.
And that's how you learn. And you know, the first part of your career was the learning piece, and now you are, okay, where am I doing satisfying work? That's where I want to focus my energy. And I think that's what I think everybody needs to get to in their career is where am I doing satisfying work? And that's kind of where my ambitions in the political field have come from. You know, I've achieved a lot, but I want to deliver impact. And I've done some of that through charities and things like that, but I want to do more. And so that's where I feel like the journey's taking me.
The people that know me know I'm not politically minded. However, if I had a vote, I'd vote for you. So based on how I have got to know you, and how you always have the North Star or ambition or goals in mind, could you tell me what you'd like to see the future if you get into and are able to make a difference in politics, what that would look like?
So I suppose where my heart is London. It's where I was born. It's where my parents met in the 60s. And it's a city that has given me so much, whether that's friendship, whether that's love, whether that's my career. And to me, it's one of the best cities in the world. And if I can give back to London...
Other than Liverpool.
Liverpool's a great city. I'm biased to London. Liverpool's nice. But that's what I want to be able to... That's where I want to be able to give back. How can I give back to Londoners? How can I do good work that can... You know, we all know London is a city of really two halves, you know, incredibly wealthy but incredibly poor, and deprived, and you know, there's issues around safety, but equally it's fit for arts, culture, nightlife, business, financial services. You know, it does all these great things. How can I give all of that back? How can I give myself back to London? That would be the end goal.
A question I ask a lot of people that I get to know and enjoy the company is that your parents have had their struggles, and you have experienced, you know, how your parents have taught you. We're starting to live in a world where it's, I guess, it's challenging in a different way, but at the same time, quite comfortable for the next generation in some ways. How are you going to instill those values in your son and ensure that he's as driven as you, as ambitious as you, as appreciative as you, and maybe, because I can tell he's going to have a great life with a wonderful mother that's going to look after him well. He might not struggle as much as other people, and sometimes the struggle, as we've talked about, is the real lessons and how we grow. How are you going to be able to, for him to understand those values and be as driven and as appreciative as you?
I mean, I think if you are a really values-driven person, they're at the core of everything you do. So you would hope amorphously that, you know, your children will pick that up, but you have to be grounded, and you have to keep them grounded as well. So I think that will be okay. I think through me, through his grandmother, through his family, you know, through friendships, he's surrounded by great people who will always keep him grounded, who will always be there for him. To me, the most important thing is that he feels loved and he feels secure. And I think if he has those things, everything else will follow. If he feels loved and he feels secure, everything else will follow.
Feel loved, feel secure. I think that goes for all of us. Devina Paul, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Sean. That was great.